Hello, this is Viet, and now I'm going to demo my Covid database application project. For this project, I've decided to use streams to process the database. Streams has a lot of methods, which allows for more efficiency instead of using high number of for loops when processing the database. There are numerous higher order functions to maximize the code reuse as well. Okay, so now let's head into the first section, which is processing the file input, which resides within the class parser. So the parser class reads all the lines within the CSV file, and parsing extracts the necessary strings within the CSV file and converting them to suitable objects resides within the records. So now I'll go ahead and open up the record class, which is where I've defined the necessary objects such as location, date, new cases, new deaths, people vaccinated, along with the data types for each of the objects. The records will consist of all the objects for the selected data. So now onto the summary section. For grouping the records or dates, there are three types of grouping. The first one, which is single grouping, which means each day is a separate group. The second one, count grouping, process the number of groups based on the user's input, and it will calculate the suitable number of days within a particular group. Size grouping, letting the user determine the number of days or size within groups, and each group are divided equally. Now let's head into the query class, where we will query all the user's input needed for calculations, as well as taking care of the calculation. When we run the program, we'll ask the users for input. And now I'm going to open the enumerations, which consists of all the inputs. The options for each of the inputs are defined within the enumerations. Data range type includes the options for selecting the date range. Grouping type includes the option for grouping types. Metrics includes the options for picking the values to calculate. Result types includes the options for calculations. Display type includes the option for displaying either a chart or a table. The program gets the user's input using while loops, which are declared within the inputs_util class. After the user went through all the inputs required, group the records and run the query. For each of the input types, we run its action. The query also asks the user if they've done editing the query. If not, they can choose to edit whichever inputs they would like. After the user is done with querying all the inputs, the program executes, which is going to filter the data by chosen location, by chosen date range, and produce date record map to look up record by date. After that, iterate chosen date range and create a stream for all the selected dates. Since we are treating missing dates as a 0, we execute the program based on the date range instead of records, or to put simply, by dates. This is to ensure that missing dates are also included for calculation and display. After that, split the date groups by chosen grouping options, and then produce a summary of data in a group, which consists of the range and value, which are used for displaying the table. Next, sort the group and produce a summary between groups with the chosen result type. Now on to calculating the value. We'll filter the record that exists, get the record by date along with the chosen metric, and finally calculate the sum total. After the program finished executing, ask the user if they're done. And this repeats every time. If we look into inputs_util, it's basically a while loop. If no, then go back to the query inputs and ask the user if they want to edit the query and run the program again. Now on to the last part, displaying the results of the calculations based on the user inputs. There are two options, table display and chart display. For tabular display, since we already have the calculated results for each of the group, we just need to print them out along with the table structure. For chart display, calculate the minimum and maximum value of the data for the groups, which are used for chart labels on the y-axis. Then calculate the scale of the chart. Values that are approximately quite close to each other will be displayed on the same row as the range of the label. We will draw the chart and plot the data, followed by adding the legends for the date groups. Okay, so now let's run the program, see how it works. We can run it from main. And the first step is choosing a location. It can either be a country or a continent. Right now I'll pick Asia as my location. And then for the next step, we're choosing the data range type. So as you guys can see right here, well, we're not inputting a string, but instead we're just putting numbers, so that it makes the UI quicker for the user, instead of having to put like days after or pair or the range type that they want. They can just pick the number. So now I'll pick days after. It's number 2. The number of days, I'll pick 30, and grouping to this one. Possible. New total. And, okay, I'm going to demo both of the display. First, I'm going to pick the chart, which is number 1. Yes, and after the input steps are completed, it'll be queried, and it will ask if you're finished editing, and you say yes, it will execute all the calculations and display out the results for you, which means in this case it's going to be a chart. So as you guys can see right here, this is the chart plot, and these numbers right here, in order to know which date it represents on the x-axis, you can take a look at the legend. Okay. After the program completed running and displaying all the results and everything, it's going to ask you if you're done with it. You say yes, then it will just quit the program. You say no, you go back to the query, and obviously if you say yes again, then it's going to run the same results. But so as you guys can see right here, there are options for you, and you can pick which one you would like to edit. So in this case, you can edit location, date range type, grouping, metric, result type, and display type. So now I'm going to go ahead and type and finish editing. Yep. So this is going to be the table with the range and value. So now let's try editing grouping. So grouping number. Choose a number of groups. So let's say I want 15 groups. Yep. So here's going to be the table value for that one. And that's pretty much how the program works.